Hello, I'm Rosie,
And I'm Zeb,
and we're with Bored to Death Games.
and we are reviewing Endeavor. This is a game by Z-Man Games, and it's a game about empire building in Europe and the rest of the world in the 18th century.
Unfortunately, this game does have a rather long setup time, and it also does have a lot of rules to it. Once you get going and you're playing, it goes really fast, but we're not going to be going over all of the rules this evening, because we don't want this to be a 20-minute long review. But we just want to give you a good overview of this, because it's a really fun game.
So what comes with the game? It's for 3 to 5 players. Each player, there are differently colored piles, so there's red, and then respectively black, white, green, and purple. Each player has a track board that keeps track of their points, their buildings, what cards they have in play, like this one in front of me. Comes with a map that shows Europe and then kind of these abstract colonial possessions. It's not a, strictly speaking, geographic or accurate map.
It also comes with cards, which you need to make sure you're setting in their correct country, and start with the 1, then 2, then 3, like so.
These little tiles, which we'll go into what they do, but they're critical to gameplay. There's also, and this is also critical to gameplay, the buildings. There are different levels of buildings that you can build depending on how powerful your industrial output is throughout the game. They let you gain extra actions, or they boost your score, or they grant you extra abilities. They do a variety of things.
And you really want to make sure to set them up so that you can see which ones cost 1, 2, 3. We'll go into what they do, but it's important to know what's left, because once someone buys that building, it's no longer available to you. So if all 3 of the fortresses are gone, they're gone. So how does the game work? Player 1 has the crown token in front of them to show that they are player 1. From then on, it goes to their left. So if I was going first, then Zeb, then whoever else is playing. They get to take their building phase first. You'll notice that this little red token is on a 0. However, I have a building power of 1, because beneath it you'll see there's 1 brick. If it was on 2, I would have a building power of 2. If it was on 3, I'd also have a building power of 2. It just depends which bricks are underneath it. So since I have a building power of 1, I get to choose from the buildings that cost 1. I'm going to choose a shipyard. After I've built my building, Zeb has the chance to build.
In this case, I might also build a shipyard, or perhaps I would build a workshop. Both of them are strong openings for the game. The buildings do a few different things. So if you look on the bottom of the workshop here, there are those little build icons. They just give you a bonus to whatever that is. So let's say I do build the workshop, then my score on the track increases by 2 correspondingly. Now I can build the 2 brick buildings.
Not right now, but during his next turn, he would be able to.
Or if I decided to build the workshop, it has the little culture icon there, so it would go up by 1. It also has the little ship icon, which grants me an action I can do during my turn. We'll get to that in a little bit. So once we've gone through the building phase, what next?
All right. So then you all look at your culture tracks, and you get that many people, and you get to put them in your harbor. So I get 2. You'll notice that my token has moved up by 1, like Zeb was talking about, due to my shipyard. But in any case, it isn't enough to let me get into the 3 range, so I get 2 like everyone else. After that, everyone's done that, we get to pay back our people. This doesn't matter on your first turn. For the rest of the game, it's really important. So you'll notice that there's 1 money bag. If I had 1 person sitting over here in a shipyard, and let's say I also had 1 over there, since there's only 1 money bag, I get 1 person back. I can only use actions that are empty like that when we get around to the action part. So it's really important to be getting back as many of your people as you can, and to really strategize which people you want back. I probably want to be shipping, and I don't want to be colonizing, so it's important to do that. So after I do that, Zeb does that, everyone does that. We then check out card limit, make sure that it is where it's supposed to be at. You'll notice it has 1 card, and then it has a pair of handcuffs. This game is not completely politically correct because slavery exists. So you're allowed to have 1 normal card and 1 slavery card. If you have more than 1 slavery card, it counts as a normal card, but you're allowed to have 1 slavery card for free unless slavery is outlawed, which we'll go into later.
So what do these cards do? We've been talking about them. They grant specific bonuses. Depending on how many people you have in a region, you can draw cards. You'll notice that in Europe, this set and this set, they have a 0 printed there, which means that at the beginning of the game, even if you have nothing there, you can still draw from them. So let's say I decided to go with the slavery card. It gives me 2 brick, and it goes up correspondingly. Now, the game recognizes that building an empire based on slavery is not necessarily the most savory thing to do. There is an option, if you get to the very end of the game, and somebody draws the Europe with the 5 card in it, for the abolition of slavery. Once that happens, people lose all of their slavery cards, and they get a negative point for every one they have in their discard pile. So it's possible slavery is not necessarily the safest route to go with.
It also, it's really hard when suddenly you lose a whole bunch of cards, because as well, you have to, let's say I had this one right here. I have to lose those 2 builds. They can't help me in the final scoring of the game. So it really hurts if someone gets there. And you want to make sure that if you're going for slavery, no one has the possibility of abolishing it.
So, those are the cards. Let's get into these little tiles and then the actions. So, you'll notice that there are 2 sets. There are the blues and then there are the brown ones. The brown ones have the little influence track icons on them. If I were to occupy this city, then I would get to pick up that token and keep it. It does 2 things. 1, it gives me a permanent bonus, just of 1, to that track. But it also counts as a point. This little icon stands for point at the end of the game. So for every one of these I have, I get a point. These cities also have those same little icons. Now, the blue ones have little action icons on them. So the cannon, or payments right here. Instead of having a building or needing a building to perform that action, I can just spend that token and get rid of it to perform the action. The downside is that I don't get the point at the end of the game. So what are these actions we're talking about? There are 5 important ones. There's ship. Shipping requires a building that would let you do so, and you can put tokens in these areas right here. This represents Europe sending colonists and putting influence into these faraway areas. Once they're all filled up, the person with the most becomes the governor, which grants them a permanent bonus. And then the cities are opened up to colonization. We can start sending people in there and there. There are a few benefits to holding cities. You get the icon that's there, that's a big one. If you control a trade route, as you see through these little lines, so if I had controlled this city and this city, I get the icon that's there as well as the point from it. So it's in your interest to try to build a strong trade network as much as possible. Occupying, which is done with a little flag icon, lets you take a city. There is the attack option. When you attack, you spend 1 guy or 1 unit to occupy, 1 unit to activate it, and then 2 more, one of which gets discarded, presumably dies horribly while fighting for the city, and then you take it, replacing the icon of whatever player you just took it from. So
cannons are actually very expensive for your men in the harbor, and you're going to want to make sure to have a lot of culture in order to play that, because otherwise you're just not going to, it's not very sustainable. However, if you're doing something like shipping or sending people away to cities, you only need 1 person. So you need 1 person to go on there and 1 person to go away.
So warfare is not an easy or really viable option early in the game because most states just don't have the manpower to actually make it worthwhile. Late game, the game tends to explode into violence. The final 2 actions, there's the crate, as indicated there, if you can see that. The crate lets you draw cards, so if you have enough presence in the region, presence is just defined as the number of colored tokens you have. So if I had 3 in Europe, I could draw up to the 3 card. The 1 and 2 would have to be gone first, though. There's also, finally, and this really doesn't come up until the end of the game, the payments option. If I had that token, or a building with that token on it, what I can use it to do is take an icon off of another building. So if I had Parliament, which has a payment, and I had a fortress, which I might have already used that turn, I could activate Parliament to get my fortress back and use it again. So it grants you some versatility as you go through the game.
So really fast, what is shipping and how does it work? When you ship away, sorry, I'm going to take this back. When you ship away a person, you go away and you go into the shipping line and you get whatever is there. The person who has the most tokens within this line gains the governor card when the entire shipping track is full. If there is a tie, the person who is the closest to the end within that tie gets the governor card. You'll notice the governor card does give you a bunch of benefits. It goes in the slot that is just for governor cards. If at the end of the game you don't have one, you get 3 victory points to count towards your score. But otherwise, it's very helpful while you're playing. It's also important to notice that once the shipping track is full up, only the people whose people are represented here are allowed to send people away to the cities within the area. Let's say Zeb has no purple here. The shipping track is full, but he really wants to go here for some reason. He would have to first ship one of his men to the shipping line and then go there. But it doesn't give him a bonus. He doesn't get a thing for it. It just counts as him having presence in order to build a city.
So there's an incentive for players to try to put as many of their fingers in different pies as possible, just so that they can go in different regions. What are some of the different play styles of this game? It's possible to play it more aggressively. I mean, it's difficult early game just because you don't have the population to wage a sustained war against an enemy. But trying to grab up tokens that you know are useful, so for example, action tokens. Having a large supply of, say, the attack token means that you can, at the end of the game, potentially wage a devastating war against an enemy. Building up trade networks is important because doing so allows you to grab points and tokens simultaneously.
Keeping scoring in mind is very important. At the end of the game, when the building track is completely full, you get points for wherever the icon in bold there, wherever that is. So let's say I had a building score of 8. I only get 7 points because that's the last one with the little picture. If I had 9, I still only get 7. Once you get into these final 5, you get points for all of them. So some people's strategy is actually just to boost everything way up there. And it works. You can get a lot of points just from having all of your people over there.
You get points, obviously, from the tokens. Generally speaking, it's better to spend the action tokens, but in a close game, it's a good idea to hang on to them. The networks are important. Having a large population left over in your harbor actually grants you a small bonus at the end of the game. So the way it will usually play out is that some players will go more aggressive. Usually somebody will specialize into a continent, but you can also try to finagle that, either by forcing them to put all their population in to fill up the shipping track, or sending your guys in to interrupt them at one moment. So there's a lot of strategy, I feel, that goes into playing this game.
Yeah, I agree. It's a really fun game. I know it sounds complicated, but actually once you get going, it really isn't. By about building 4, you generally have it down. When I play this game for the first time with people, I actually suggest that you play through building 4 and then you start over, because everyone understands the game well. It doesn't take that long to get there, and then people can really focus on their strategies and make sure that they're doing what they want to be doing.
So what do you think of this game overall? Let's put the pitch out there for people.
I really like it. I think it's a lot of fun. It does have a chance element because these tiles are not always placed the same. Don't worry, you don't have to set it up with the same tiles in the same places every time. We actually do it where we flip them all over first and then we move them in, so it is completely random. You'll notice, I think there was one, there's a whole bunch of little shields here. There's a whole bunch of diplomatic things there. We want to make sure that chance really is a factor. So that changes it up a little bit. Different strategies, I really like that you can actually, if someone's doing too well, you can start using cannons on them, so it adds an element of surprise to the game.
You do want to be playing with a fairly attentive group of players. This is not a real casual gaming experience. It's easy to settle, at least the first couple games I played, to settle into kind of a single-player solitaire thing and then not have anything really happen until the last turn. But the right group of gamers should be able to go hog wild with a game like this and really delve deeply into it.
I believe the estimated time for the game is 90 minutes, which I agree. I think that that's fairly accurate.
I would add an hour for your first game just because, again, and this is my one complaint with the game really, is that explaining it to people always seems so much more difficult than just actually playing it. Generally by turn 3, everybody's got it down pat, but the first or the first explanation of the game just it goes on for forever and nobody really has an idea of it.
There are a few little rules we haven't talked about as much. There are strategies we haven't talked about. I mean, it really does change gameplay once you fully understand them. But overall, I think this is a great game, and I would give it an 8 out of 10.
I agree completely. It's a fantastic game.
The visuals are wonderful. The luck doesn't play too big of a role. The only real downside to this game, as Zeb was saying, is that you do need to make sure you have an attentive group. But it's a lot of fun, and it isn't. You don't have to pay so much attention to it once you know it. It's not a game that's really hard or you really need to focus on. You need to know what you're doing, but it's a lot of fun.